Hi everyone, my name is Carrie Barron with Classes with Carrie B. Thank you so much for purchasing an Oyster Decoupage kit, and I'm excited for you to make them with me today. So I have our Christmas kit here, and so when it arrives, I'm going to go through the things that you'll have inside. So you will have either, based on what you've chosen, some Christmas napkins. Or if you did mix, you'll have a variety of napkins in there. You'll also have 3 oyster shells that have a hole in the top and the bottom. And 2, and they're very clean. 3. You are going to have a thing with MP on the top, which is Mod Podge. Something with P on top, which is paint, though you might have a little container of paint too, but a thing of paint, some beads, some wire, and some fun tassels, gold paint, and 3 paintbrushes. The only thing that you need that I did not include in the kit is just some kind of surface to do it on. Just a little bit messy, and then a pair of scissors. And that's it. Everything else is included in your kit. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that I grew up on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and so I grew up eating oysters and crabs and all the things from the beautiful Chesapeake Bay, and I also go out on boats and go oystering. So oysters live in brackish water, so salty and fresh water, and they basically are on the bottom, sort of in piles. So you don't normally just see an oyster by itself, but under the water, they're sitting there on the bottom, sort of all kind of glommed on top of each other. When you go out in a boat, you usually take these big tongs, and once you're over one of those oyster areas, you drop your tongs down, and then you squeeze them, and then you pull them up, and you drop it on the boat, and then you measure them because they have to be a certain length for you to be able to keep them. Once you've measured them and they're good, then you take them home and you rinse them and you shuck them, you eat them. And then what I do is I soak them in bleach and then I wash them, and then they're ready for you to use. I don't obviously use that many oyster shells. Most of them that we have left over, we actually go back to those oyster beds, is what they're called, and we dump the shells back onto those oyster beds, because oysters, when they're babies, are called spat, and that's just a really cute word. But more importantly, they are little floaty things in the water before they make their shell, and they need something hard to land on to grow. And so without putting oyster shells back into the bay, you wouldn't have baby oysters being able to land and making more oysters. So it's sustainable to return oysters back to the bay, but we use just a very small amount. Also, I do give a donation to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation for their work in cleaning up and keeping the Chesapeake Bay as beautiful as it is. So let's get started. First thing that you're gonna do, so your shells have 2 holes in them. You do not have to use these holes. They are in case you want to make it an ornament, and if maybe you want to put a tassel down at the bottom. If you don't and you want to use it as a dish, that's fine too. But you're going to do the same thing. It's just they're pre-drilled just in case you would like to use it to make it an ornament. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to pick which napkin you'd like to use. And so I think for mine, I kind of like this right here, these multiple trees. So once you have the napkin that you want to use, the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to open it up, and almost all napkins are 2 or 3 ply. So how you figure that out is I usually just tear the corner like this. That was excessive, but you get the point. And then you just pull it out. This can be used just as a napkin for your fingers later. And then you've got a single ply napkin with the design. And that's exactly what you're looking for. Next thing you're gonna do is cut out the square. So you're gonna you can rip it or cut it. So you just take that and cut your square. Okay. So now we have our square cut. And the next thing is prepping the oyster. So take your square and put it to the side. This dark area inside of the oyster is where it was once attached. So when you open an oyster, you'll see inside that the body's attached here. So it leaves this dark mark. When you're using a light napkin, you can see the dark mark underneath. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're actually going to paint the inside of the oyster shell. So I would do this maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes ahead and let it dry a little bit. But you're going to use this brush right here and your paint. And you are going to do a nice thin layer. It really doesn't have to be that specific. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to be totally covered. Your whole goal is just trying to cover that dark spot so it doesn't show underneath your shell, or under your napkin, sorry. I need some coffee. Under your napkin. Okay, there we go. So then you're gonna let that dry, and you can actually just paint all 3 of them and let them dry so that they're ready and prepped. Okay, so once your shell is dry, you can use it to add the Mod Podge. So Mod Podge is, it's called Oyster Decoupage, which is just a fancy term for gluing napkins on oysters. If you decoupage anything, it's just gluing napkins on something. So pumpkin decoupage is on pumpkins. And the key to this is using Mod Podge. And the Mod Podge I use is this. It's matte. Doesn't really matter because it's underneath. But I tend to really like this and it works great for this project. So you're going to take your Mod Podge MP and you're going to open it up. And now you're going to take the larger of the 2 brushes that are left, and you're just going to put it in your Mod Podge, and now you're going to paint your entire inside of your shell. Again, this is a thin layer. It's just enough to hold it. If you do it too thick and you start to put your napkin down, it's going to bulge, and that creates problems. So you just want a thin layer, and you want to start on the outside. So I do the entire rim like this all the way around, because you want it to be able to stick to that rim. So you do the rim first, just the rim that's facing you, or you guys at this point, but there you go. And then once the rim's done, you're just going to bring it all the way through the center of the shell. Okay, all the way through. Again, this is not supposed to be this isn't supposed to be thick. It's just a full coverage, and that's it. You just fully cover, make sure the edges are done, because that's going to be an important part for you. I'll move that to the side. Okay, so now we're ready to put our napkin in. If you're doing something that's repetitive, it makes it pretty easy. You're just going to put it right in the middle and square it up. If you're doing something that has, like this guy, a more distinct pattern, okay? What you want to do is when you're looking to place your napkin, you want to put the main object that you want in the middle to basically, like, let's say this is the top of him right here, his head. You want his head to go right here. So you're going to align it so that it is just below the top knob of the oyster. But what's really important is you need to have enough napkin coverage all the way around that when you push it down, you don't lose it and you have an exposed side, okay? So for this one, let's just say that I want to have this Christmas tree in the middle of my oyster, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold my oyster and I'm going to hold the napkin over it. I'm gonna show you from the back too. you need to have at least this much in the back on each side. This is the smallest side. You need at least that much so that you don't lose it on the side when you're pushing it in. Okay, so I'm going to turn it around. The first thing I do is I'm going to take my finger, and there's this ridge right in there, right back there in the back, and you're going to push your finger into that dent. So I push my finger right into that dent. Excuse me. Once your finger's in that dent, you're going to just push it all the way down to the bottom. And make sure it's nice and tight on the edge of your oyster. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to start in the middle and start pushing your napkin down and all the way out to the side. Just like this, and all the way out to the side. Excuse me, just a moment. I'm hoping to do this in one cut, so we'll see. And so it's all pushed in, all the way down on the sides. So it should look like this on the back and this on the front. Now, if you have wrinkles, in this project, not on you, which I have that on me too. If you have them, you can just use your finger and press it down. And just kind of, if you sort of move it back and forth, you can move the napkin a little bit to alleviate them. All right. So next thing you want to do is now we want to get rid of the excess napkin. So I stick my thumb on the edge of the shell on the top, and I use my other one just to pull down. So again, my thumb is on the edge, on the top of the oyster, and then I'm just ripping down. So again, thumb is on the top of the oyster, and then you just rip your napkin down. Because if you do not put your thumb at the top, when you go to rip it, sometimes it actually will rip right off of your oyster itself. So this is what it starts to look like. And you don't have to be specific about it. You can just kind of be pulling down. It does not need to be perfect. Okay? And then when you get through, you can go and you can pull these extra little pieces off. Now, if your edge is a little bit, if your edge just looks a little bit sort of tattered, just tuck them in, because we're going to be doing gold on the outside. All right? So that's what it looks like when you've completed it and got the napkin inside. Now, if you are going to leave it as a dish, the only other thing you're going to do is paint the outside gold. If you're going to make it an ornament, then we're going to add the extra stuff to it. But first, we're going to do the outside in gold. So you have one more paintbrush, and you also have your gold paint. So shake your gold paint up, and then open the top. And now we're going to do the outside. So you're going to take your paintbrush and you're going to get some gold paint on it, and then you are going to paint the outside edge of the oyster shell. And if there's any kind of like jutty part sticking out, I always like to paint those as well. All right. And how thick you want it is based on your preference on how you like it to look. I don't do a very thick line. I do a pretty thin line all the way around. And you can just kind of do the edge. Like that. And if you're, so this is a good example, my napkin was not fully down, so just use your finger and press it down. Make sure it's stuck with the Mod Podge. There we go. You're gonna go around the whole thing. It's just amazing what it looks like after you've added the gold. It's so beautiful. All right. And then over here, you'll finish it up. And if you there we go. How pretty that looks. I'm just gonna hold it like this so I can finish the last section. Okay, and if that is going to be a jewelry dish, then you are basically done. And if it is not going to be a jewelry dish, then is the fun part. So now, if it's a jewelry dish, it's ready to go. If it's not a jewelry dish, you're gonna take your wire, okay? And you're gonna cut it as long as you would like your sort of hanger hook to be for your ornament. So for this one, I'm doing not too big. I think I did it about 6 inches, okay? Now, let this dry first, but for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna go ahead and do the rest of it. So you're gonna go to the back where the hole is, and you're gonna use your wire, and you're gonna stick it right through, just like this. And then, so it feeds through into the front, okay? And then the next thing we do is you make it halfway, the oyster shell halfway, and then you bring it up, and you're going to twist it like this. Sorry, you're gonna twist it just like this, all the way up, okay? Now, the next thing that you're gonna do, so now you have it, looks kind of like an antenna. Now is the fun part, and mine's very short. You might want to have a longer hook there, but then you feed your beads on. So we've got all sorts of pretty beads to look at and add. I'm just going to put these out here so it's easier for me to get to them. You're going to add your beads. Oops, hello. And try not to drop them. That's what I just did. Easier said than done. Maybe wear your glasses if you need them, because I definitely need them, because this is very hard for me to say. There we go. And so you're going to bead each side up, and then when you get to the top, you're simply going to twist it. Okay, so I'm gonna do a couple more beads just so I can show you. Let's go this guy here, and this one here. I always love things to be ordered, and maybe, I don't know if I'm gonna do the same or if I just wanna do gold on that side. Let's see, maybe I'll do silver gold, silver gold. Okay, and then again, you're just going to twist the two at the top. Not have a bead disaster. And then you're just going to tuck the top sort of right back into a bead, or you can do that, or once you have it nice and tight, you can just do a little snip of the extra and tuck it down. Just like that. Okay. And again, you should make this longer. I made it a little bit shorter. Now, you can stop like that, or you can add a tassel. So for the tassel, you do not need a lot of wire. You're just gonna use a short amount of wire, maybe like 3 to 4 inches, like that. Same thing. You're gonna go in through the back, the hole you have in the back at the bottom, and just put that in like that. Okay. And now you're gonna twist it and add your tassel. So you just kind of place your tassel in and move it all the way up. See what I'm doing here? Move it all the way up. Twist again. Cut off the extra. And look at that adorable oyster shell. And so that's what you're gonna do for all of them. Again, you can just leave it as a dish. You can make it into an ornament. And I hope you have fun. Happy crafting.